Alex Bowman is now out 3 to 4 weeks due to a vertebrae fracture. Carl Edwards is now going to tour Trackhouse Racing, and SRX has announced its TV crew. Is it better than what we currently have on Fox? We'll talk about that next on Stuck in the Catchfence. Hello, everyone, and welcome in. This is Stuck in the Catchfence. See ya. My name is Ryan Peters. I'm joined with Joe Spillman. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're eagerly waiting to see who the Cincinnati Bengals will draft here in just a few minutes, recording this on a Thursday night. And so far, a possible running back we were looking at got drafted about 20 positions higher than most people were thinking.
Yeah. Went real quick there. I guess the Atlanta Falcons needed a lot more help than what we thought they needed.
Yeah, and I'm excited to watch the trip.
I don't think they have a lot of faith in old Desmond Ridder down there.
Maybe not, but I'm really excited to watch the triple option for the Detroit Lions. That should be really fun. But you guys came in here for a NASCAR show, so we're going to start the show off with a quick question. Joe, we are heading to Dover, Delaware, where it is nicknamed the Monster Mile. Do you think that is the best nickname in NASCAR, the Monster Mile, or is there a certain track/slogan that you like the best?
No, I think Monster Mile epitomizes what Dover is. I mean, you got a mile-long concrete track, just tears up tires. A couple of years ago, you remember we saw a big chunk of that thing come up. It was wrecking people everywhere. If I'm not mistaken, isn't this track they took the drill out and started drilling through the track to relieve pressure? That wasn't
They did a lot of different things to this track because concrete, when it breaks, it's not like asphalt. It just comes in.
Right.
So my favorite nickname, Joe, is Darlington. I'm not a big fan of the Lady in Black. I do like the Too Tough to Tame, though, because I do believe Darlington has a reputation itself of being way too tough to tame, as it typically shows that as good as the drivers are in NASCAR, they will find themselves in the wall at some point. And I think that that's a very appropriate nickname for Darlington. Track Too Tough to Tame.
Yeah, it is, but we're racing in Dover.
I know, but the question was, is that your favorite? And I like it. It has my favorite monster.
I thought you were having a Joe Spillman stroke moment right here on our show, and I was like, I'm not the only one. I was pretty happy about that.
No, I asked you if it was your favorite slogan / mantra, whatever you want to call it. So it does have the best monster in all of NASCAR, with it holding last year's winning car. It could juggle the Hendrick cars is what it probably should do, from last year. But I digress.
Yeah.
But before you move on any further into this video, please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. We have been at least fighting our way through the algorithm. So any way that you're watching this, we would appreciate it if you just do one simple favor and caress the subscribe button. It really does help us out, getting this to more people, more NASCAR fans like you, and the ability for them to be able to watch this content. And hopefully for the next few minutes, you're entertained with this week's NASCAR news.
If you could just tickle it. Tickle the subscribe button.
Yeah, tickle it. Yeah. A little foreplay never hurt nobody. So let's jump right into the news, and then we will present our picks for this week at Dover, Delaware. And Joe, obviously the first big thing of news that happened this week during a Sprint Cup, I believe it was a heat. It could have been I'm almost positive it was a heat. But Alex Bowman, the second driver now at Hendrick Racing, will be missing time due to an accident off of at least the NASCAR track. He was involved in a pretty scary wreck, and it actually looks like he had the more calm piece of that wreck in this two-driver incident, but he did find a way to have a fracture in his vertebrae. He will be out 3 to 4 weeks. It could be a lot worse than that, but we've seen Eric Almirola one time have a fractured vertebrae. he did say that it, really made it uncomfortable for a while. But Joe, what is your reaction to Alex Bowman, now the second driver for Hendrick Motorsports, missing time?
Well, I mean, I obviously everybody has this knee jerk reaction, right? Where they're going to say, "What in the hell are these drivers doing off the track? Why is Hendrick? Why are these team owners letting these drivers compete in non NASCAR sanctioned events?" And I think that's the knee jerk reaction, and I think that's a reaction a lot of people are having. At the end of the day, though, these guys are race car drivers. That's what they do. That's obviously their passion. That's what makes them, get up in the morning. And I think if you take that away from them, I think you're going to have more issues, and the outcome is not going to be what you want. I think, competing in other series such as World of Outlaws and dirt events actually help these drivers compete on Sunday, week in and week out. That's their release. That's their hobby where they can go and there's not as much pressure and they can have fun. Much like the Chase Elliott breaking his injury that he suffered while snowboarding. I mean, these guys have to have time off and they have to be able to decompress from their everyday life during the season. And just like you or I could get hurt driving into work, tomorrow, what if our boss is going to tell us, hey, no more driving into work, you got to take public transportation or something like that. I think that's kind of what it equates to. So my reaction is, this is a terrible accident, but I mean, really, if you look at it, the grand scheme of life, people get hurt every day outside of work. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at right here.
Yeah, I'll give my more detailed response to that, Joe. I'm going to do a short video about that a little at a later time, so that'll be uploaded either tomorrow or Saturday, where I give a 8 to 10 minute soliloquy, if you would call it that, and what I think owners should do moving forward. But and my response to Alex Bowman being hurt, a lot of it's going to be similar to you, but I also want to get people, some things to think about as well. And I thought you did a good job, describing why you feel that way. But my question to you is, do you think owners are now going to take a more stern stance when it comes to drivers doing things outside of the NASCAR track from, Thursday to Sunday?
I definitely think owners are going to take a hard look at it. Definitely Hendrick. I mean, how could you not at this point? This is the second driver of the season to go down with an injury and doing something outside of anything work related for NASCAR or the Cup Series. So I definitely think that owners, are going to take a hard look at this. But I think at the end of the day, I think cooler heads will prevail and people will understand that these drivers have to do this. This is what they do. And I want to apologize to anybody that's tuning in for our show. If I look like a ventriloquist today, I don't know what's going on. It seems that my audio and my video are a little delayed, so I'll just point that out myself. It might be kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, we are trying a new program. Like we said, if you're just now joining us here at Stuck in the Catchfence, we are doing everything we can to advance our technology. Some things that we can't help until, internet increases, and that is happening very soon, at least for half of us. So, we are exploring. So if you're willing to, grow with us, things will get much better. I do promise that. But Joe, on my side, you've looked pretty good so far.
Oh,
so,
well,
I don't think you have too much to worry about. Yeah, and I think, getting back to the question, I think Hendrick Motorsports and Rick Hendrick have, definitely a really long look in the mirror about what they're going to do moving forward, and they have the most prominent off-track racer, if that's the right way to put it, in Kyle Larson. I mean, he's the most active right now, and he's the most prominent. I mean, he literally just at Eldora won his 7th different class of racing, this past week. Not this week, but the week before. And if you're going to go to Kyle Larson and say, hey, Kyle, you're not allowed to race dirt anymore, Kyle Larson, in my mind, Joe, is going to go somewhere else. And we've heard other drivers talk about this. Christopher Bell was not happy because after Coy Gibbs passed away, he was kind of the linchpin holding it together to where, Christopher Bell was able to race on dirt. And Christopher Bell has not raced on dirt during the NASCAR season, which something that, he was very displeased with. And I think of other drivers moving forward as well. this might be a situation where some of these teams really have an advantage. I mean, after kind of tongue in cheek, but the IndyCar series says Kyle Busch wins in a McLaren, jokingly because he was winning with McLaren grills, something I've never heard of. And then, McLaren grills had a good week because their site crashed after Kyle Busch won that race.
Right.
But, McLaren is moving to IndyCar, and Kyle Busch has outwardly said he always wanted to race in the Indy 500. And now with McLaren moving to IndyCar and now knowing that Kyle Busch can race in the Indy 500, all these different types of draws that we're moving forward, and we'll even talk about SRX here in a little bit as well. I think that there may be a movement happening when it comes to what they're going to now put in the language, Joe, for these drivers moving forward. I don't know if there's going to be a payment penalty, but I think definitely if not the drivers or the owners, I definitely think the sponsors are going to go, hey, if we don't see Chase Elliott driving the Napa Auto Parts number 9, we don't want to pay Josh Berry to drive the Napa Auto Parts number 9. So we need to have this written in that language. And man, it's already hard enough when it comes to get the sponsors to pay for money in NASCAR. That could really, really, really throw a wrench in things moving forward.
I 100% agree, but you already have things lined up because, as you know, these drivers, they're in high demand. I think Kyle Larson, isn't he committed for the Indy 500 in 2024 or 2025?
I believe so.
So I mean, these drivers are free to do things outside of their contract currently. And if that's the case, then you're talking about contract renegotiation, and that's where the business side of this comes in, like any other sport. I really think at the end of the day, I do see maybe possibly, like you're saying, contracts come into play with at least the owners of saying, hey, if Chase Elliott, if Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch aren't in the car, we're not paying full sponsorship price for that race. I totally agree with that, and that's probably something that will happen. As far as the drivers are concerned, I'm going to stick to my guns with that and say I really don't see how you can do this or do that to those drivers when, like I said, I mean, just to put it simply, that's literally what makes them get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Joe. I think that, from a driver's standpoint, I don't think they should be restricted. And one driver / owner is Brad Keselowski, and he's committed to run the entire SRX schedule. And maybe he's the type of person, working at RFK. They're only a 2-man group right now, but, they're getting better. He may look at that and say, hey, I'm going to be running in these other series too. If you're worried about not being able to do that, here at RFK, we'll be able to do that. It might be something that, when they negotiate with drivers now, it might end up being something that puts a driver over the top with the team versus something else. We will see, first and foremost, we want Alex Bowman to get healthy. Thank God he's okay, because that was a nasty crash. And Joe, we're talking not even a month ago. We're talking about a driver in a sprint car that ended up getting killed here at our local track. Right. That made waves around the nation. So, we know how dangerous these sprint cars are, but, Alex Bowman grew up driving them, and things happen. That guy ends up, causing a wreck. He honestly, if you look at the video, he looked like he got the way worse deal during that wreck. So the fact that Alex Bowman was the one that ended up suffering the injury, at least from what we know right now, is surprising, but thank God it wasn't much worse.
We also, I watched that wreck a couple times. We also didn't get a real good look at the entirety of Alex Bowman's wreck either, because, the other vehicle, the rollover of that sprint car was so horrific. Obviously, the camera was focused on that car. You just kind of see, Alex Bowman coming to frame there, flipping a couple times at the end.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of Blaine Perkins at Talladega. We saw, the cameraman was focused on the guy driving head first into the inside wall, at 180 mile an hour, let alone we get to a second replay and we see Blaine Perkins doing somersaults in the air. It was hard to really capture. And obviously, the local dirt tracks don't have the same technology as, NASCAR. Maybe Fox, they might have the same technology as Fox when it comes to, showing the action. But more often than not, most NASCAR broadcasts are able to catch everything on the track. So, yeah, we won't go down that road, Joe, because I know that you have to watch who the Bengals pick tonight, and we won't be able to get to that. So we'll move forward.
Yeah. I got my draft tracker up.
So moving forward, your draft tracker.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
This
So moving forward, Carl Edwards. It is important stuff. I agree with you. Carl Edwards will take a tour with Trackhouse. He did announce that as Carl Edwards escaped from his cave. Carl Edwards is not a very public figure. We'll just put it that way, since his retirement that he had in 2018, I believe is when it was, when Tony Stewart officially ruined his self-confidence and caused him to retire after taking away his championship in a tie. We have not heard a lot from Carl Edwards. He retired very, very early, but was announced that he will be one of the top 75 drivers during NASCAR's 75th anniversary. So do want to congratulate him on that. But Joe, I just kind of want to spend the time and I've posed this question on a couple NASCAR groups, and I know that you NASCAR fans are very passionate, but not very literate when it comes to reading questions. So we're going to ask the question in audible form and see if Joe and I are able to answer it, since you guys are having a hard time reading at times. So my question, Joe, this hypothetical, again, hypothetical, I have to emphasize that. If Carl Edwards was to be in NASCAR right now, he would be the insert most popular driver.
So if let me make sure I have this straight, Ryan. If Carl Edwards was in NASCAR right now, he would be which team's most popular driver? Is that what you're asking?
Just what? No, in the entire sport. How? If you could rank Carl Edwards in the entire sport, how popular do you think he would be?
Well, I would think if Carl Edwards would have stayed in NASCAR, I definitely think that he probably would have had, how long's he been out now? 6 years?
Yeah. 2018, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Going
think
on 6 years.
I think he would definitely been a perennial competitor for a championship. I think that you would have to put him up there. I mean, I think you're looking at a Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex caliber driver right now. So I mean that's where his popularity I think would be compared to the rest of the NASCAR field, and I think that's the kind of the caliber of driver you're looking at.
So if you were to put a number by it, Joe, he would be the what most popular driver in the sport?
I would probably say 5th or 6th.
That's exactly where I would put him. I would put him right around 5 to 7. I think that you have Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch,
Right.
Kyle Larson, and then you kind of get into that range. Kevin Harvick, I know, is very popular with some people still. I know Martin Truex is pretty popular. And then that's kind of where I look at when it comes to Joey Logano. Yeah, well, yeah.
He has his following. I mean, those people are weird, but he does have his followings.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. He is a 2-time Cup champion. As much shit as we give Joey Logano, he is a 2-time Cup champion.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, that's where I would put him. And my next question to you, Joe, and I think this is kind of, something that we all are going to look back on. I think Carl Edwards is actually possibly with, Davey Allison. Obviously, that's a totally different, situation that happened with him, but Carl Edwards is one of those drivers like Tim Richmond that you go, what if? What if Carl Edwards stayed in NASCAR and, was able to carry on this last 6 or 7 years? Do you think that he would have a championship by now? Do you think he would have more than one championship by now if he was to stick it out in NASCAR?
That's really hard to say, and the what ifs there are really big, right? But I think he would be at least competing. He would have been competing for championships every year. I mean, he would have been coming down to, either the Final Four or the Final Eight in the playoffs perennially, and there's a very good possibility. I think he could have had a championship or possibly two. But there's a very good possibility that he wouldn't have any. And I think, though, that's one thing I never understood about when Carl Edwards exited NASCAR as to why, and we never really got a why. A wholehearted why he left. I mean, and he just kind of left and disappeared. Right. And that's something I never really understood. I mean, I was never really a huge fan of Carl Edwards, but I never really had anything against him either. And I think that he should have stayed. I think obviously his exit and his departure from NASCAR were really premature. And as we all know, it was on him. It wasn't because he didn't have a ride or, he couldn't find sponsorships. It was totally because he didn't want to race anymore. And, it sounds like he's got the competitive spirit back, because at least he's, doing some things and making some moves. It sounds like he's trying to get back into it. But, I think at this point and with his age and in the career, I mean, I think that the best years are probably behind him. So I don't know why now he's looking to possibly get back into the sport.
Yeah, he said that he would tour Trackhouse. He also mentioned that he's not going to do the Project 91. I think that would be a huge get if he was able to do that. The speculation was that he wanted to be with family. And we know how busy the NASCAR schedule is. I mean, you're literally talking February to November every single year. And that makes a lot of sense. If he was to stay with Joe Gibbs, my thought is that he probably would have a championship by now and definitely been flirting with at least another one. I thought Carl Edwards was a great driver. I thought that he really sold the sport well. He did great with his sponsors. He did great with Subway. He did great, with Fastenal, with Eris whenever he had it. And, I thought that he was a really good figure for NASCAR. I think a lot of people knew Carl Edwards' face that didn't watch a lot of NASCAR. And I think that was really helpful, for the sport, especially now that we see what happens when Chase Elliott goes down. It automatically loses 12% of its audience.
Right.
So to lose, a driver like that at that time, just losing Dale Jr., just losing Jeff Gordon, and then you throw Carl Edwards on top of it, Matt Kenseth, the champion, gets older, and other people like that, that people identified with in the sport. It just seemed like it was a max exodus in a very short time. Jimmy Johnson on top of that. And, I thought it was really tough. I understand it. I don't think anybody's going to argue that he should have stayed if he really did want to be with his family. And, to his credit, Joe, we've not heard a thing out of him. So maybe that is what he did, is he went back, said, I'm going to live with my family. You guys will never really hear from me ever again because I don't want to be in the spotlight anymore. And, NASCAR has the ultimate question of a guy retiring in his mid-30s, which is, in some people, your prime when it comes to NASCAR. I mean, Kevin Harvick's 44 years old. He would be younger than Kevin Harvick right now if he was racing in NASCAR. And, that kind of puts it really in perspective. And, he obviously had one of the most memorable, even if you weren't a NASCAR fan and you turned in the highlights and you watched a guy do a backflip off his car and you're like, well, that's pretty damn cool. Yeah. Might root for that guy, because God knows if you and I did that, Joe, it wouldn't be the car wreck that caused us to leave an ambulance. It would be the celebration.
No, I'd land it. My question, though, is do you think he
could... It meaning your head, yes.
Yeah. Do you think he could still do the backflip?
He was a pretty fit guy. I don't see him... I would say yes. I would say at 43, I think he'd be 43 or 42. I think he could probably still do it.
I'd say he could probably still do it. I mean, this was a guy that would, if you remember, he'd run a triathlon on a Saturday and then compete in a 500-mile race on Sunday. So I'm pretty sure he could probably still do a backflip off his car.
Yeah. And I don't know. It was one of those things, Joe. I'll never forget that whenever I heard that Carl Edwards was no longer going to be in NASCAR, I mean, it just blew me away. I was like, that was one of those times when you're like, that's not true. That can't be real. And it was. And I think that he's really left a void. He was a great personality, like I said, for the sport. And when it comes to needing personalities, I think now more than ever we see what happens when NASCAR doesn't have those type of personalities to carry it. Kyle Busch was that, and even he has lost the villain role, if you will, because now he moved to the bow tie. So he's almost come full circle now that people that used to not like him now like him just because he has a bow tie on his car. And I feel like NASCAR's really trying to strive to put together a personality, and Kyle Busch kind of took that mantle, at least to help with being the villain, Joe. But is there a driver moving forward? Do you think that NASCAR should really hang its hat on trying to promote more? I mean, the Fox broadcast shows you Bubba, Blaney, Hamlin, which Hamlin's the most deserving out of those, but 3 out of the 5 drivers that they show haven't even won a championship.
No, I agree. And I think that really the driver that I think, and we've already kind of seen this progression, the driver that's going to take off and the kind of quintessential villain role, we've already seen it, is Ross Chastain. That guy's popularity over the next couple of years, I think, is just going to explode, because I think Ross Chastain probably at some point in the next, I'll say 2 to 5 years, he's going to win a championship. I think he has that talent. Obviously made it to the Final Four next year. People love to hate that guy, and people love to love that guy. He's gonna as Kyle Busch kind of ages out, and I'm not saying that's anytime soon. He's already moving past that villain role. People that have hated Kyle Busch for years are starting to love the guy. I've become a fan of Kyle Busch, not because I'm friends with you, but I have really become a fan of that guy over the last couple of years, and especially this year. He went from the quintessential villain, the prick of NASCAR, to it's just like, no matter what he says, it's either funny or it's just like, that's typical Kyle Busch. And, and he's obviously one of the best drivers, if not the best driver to ever get in a race car. So, you have that with a lot of drivers. We saw Dale Earnhardt kind of fill that role. Jeff Gordon was never really liked, but toward the end of his career, people started liking him. I think Ross Chastain is going to fill that void for the ultimate villain in NASCAR. And we really need this, because you take a look back in NASCAR heyday when you had Dale Earnhardt, when you had Tony Stewart, when you had, Ryan Newman, you had the people that
Greg
loved,
Biffle even was a guy that used to piss
people
people
love to
off.
hate those people. And controversy sells, and it sold tickets, and it sold ratings. And right now you just don't have that. I mean, when you have William Byron and William Byron winning races, I mean, William Byron's a good guy, but we've talked about this. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that William Byron's winning races. He doesn't have a great personality, kind of like a Jeff Gordon. William Byron is not ever gonna, I mean, at least Jeff Gordon, when you pissed him off, would go fight, right? Right? He had a little bit of emotion.
Yeah, when Kevin Harvick pushed him in the back, sure.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I don't see William Byron doing that. Maybe I'm wrong, but NASCAR needs a villain, because you don't have one right now. Kyle Busch has moved out of that role. Ryan Newman's not around anymore. Tony Stewart's not around. You need somebody like that. And I think Ross Chastain's going to be the next superstar in NASCAR for years to come, because he's going to win, and he's going to start winning a lot. He's going to win a championship, and people are going to hate that guy, and people are going to love that guy. And we'll get back to the late to mid to late 90s, when people were having fist fights in the stands over whose driver's better, because that's what NASCAR needs.
That would be exciting, unless I am part of that fist fight. So, moving forward, it could be Corey LaJoie, who Kyle Busch labeled as a pain in the dick. But that being said, that's something.
It's not going to be Corey LaJoie.
Something I've been. No, it will not. It will not. He can go stack his pennies and be a pain in the dick, but he will not be the anti-hero in NASCAR.
There's
but Joe, we have talked a ton. Oh, Jesus. We've talked a ton on this channel about the broadcast and we've said it ad nauseum, and I want to show you ESPN in a rare dub for ESPN has announced its broadcasting team, and I'm telling you what, I'm not sure ESPN could have done any better for Thursday Night Thunder. They have Alan Bestwick for the play-by-play. Us Indiana boys know he does every Indy 500, the play-by-play there. He also does, the NASCAR races. He's the play-by-play guy on the loudspeakers there. They bring back Mac Yoakum, which a lot of NASCAR, veterans will know. Then bringing in the booth, again, a guy we talked about, Joey Logano. He has been tremendous when it comes to being in the booth for the trucks this year. And I just don't care what you do. Darrell Waltrip being back in the booth for ESPN before he is doing it for Fox or for NBC. I will be watching that with absolute glee because I love DW. I know he rubbed people the wrong way and some people didn't like him. I kind of equate it to the Dick Vitale, that people used to love him, but then they grew to get tired of him. I love DW. And then Connor Daly, who I think has his own, persona to him, what he's able to bring, being an IndyCar fan. And I think that's just a great group of people right there, Joe. What is your initial thoughts of what ESPN has put together for the SRX racing experience whenever we have that here coming up very soon?
My initial thoughts is, how come ESPN can get it right and Fox can't? I mean, that is an all-star crew to call a race. That is going to be a great race to listen to. I mean, even I don't like Joey Logano, but even when he does Xfinity on Saturday afternoons, he does a great job. I mean, I actually think Joey Logano has a very long career in broadcasting after he decides to stop racing. That lineup of broadcasting that ESPN is going to put forward for SRX is going to be much better quality than anything Fox has been able to put out in the last several years. I actually can't wait to watch it. It's going to be great insight. It's going to be great play-by-play. I mean, it's going to be like listening to the DW back in 1998. It's going to be a great broadcast.
Yeah, I think Alan Bestwick is one of the best announcers in sports, especially when it comes to motorsports. He brings an energy all the time, and this isn't nothing new. He's been doing this for a while now. Whenever it was on CBS, now it's moving over to ESPN for again the Thursday Night Thunder. But he does a tremendous job, and you can tell he loves it. I've seen multiple interviews with him just on YouTube videos of just some raw footage of him being interviewed, and you can tell he loves motorsports. And I think at times, Joe, that's what we just really want is somebody to pretend, if they're just pretending like they love motorsports. And I don't think Alan Bestwick is pretending. I think he absolutely loves anything that races with four wheels, and Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski are two guys I really can't stand in this sport. And they called the Talladega race this past week, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Job.
I thought they did a great job. Yeah. And Fox has been missing that. So now that we see what they have in terms of broadcasting, we know who they have had previously, but now Brad Keselowski is going to run in this full time. Haley Deegan's going to run in this full time. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer is going to be running races. They just announced today Casey Kane, a top 75 driver according to NASCAR and being honored, and now racing for the World of Outlaws is going to be in this. Ron Capps. All kinds of different things are happening to SRX, Joe. Do you think that this has a legitimate opportunity to really unite race fans and be something, I don't know that competes with NASCAR, but a very, very, very strong alternative moving forward?
No, I think it has been, especially for, the viewership that knew that it was going on. I think one thing that SRX has lacked in the last 2 years of competition is the ability. I don't think a lot of people were aware that this was going on. The promotion of it, I don't think, has been that great. The production of it has been great.
Right.
The race quality has been great. The drivers that they're able to bring in are just incredible. I like, they go to, a lot of the most famous short tracks around the country and they run there and they get local track heroes to win. 2 years ago, the guy's name is, escaping me right now, but, a local track legend, beats Tony Stewart, during an SRX race, but probably would never have a chance to race against Tony Stewart in his life, goes out and beats him. So, I think that this is definitely something that fans will get into. I think one thing that SRX is going to have to do, and I know it's more of an exhibition style race right now, but if they really want the sport to take off, they are going to have to promote a champion to a higher level and make it more competitive is what I'm saying. And they're going to have to add more races because I think this year, what is there, six or eight races on the schedule this year?
Six races. Yep.
6 races. I think there were 6 last year. I would like to see that go up to 12 or possibly 16. I know that's a big schedule, especially when you got full-time drivers trying to make it. But I also think if you can get regular drivers in there and actually have a competitive season where you crown a legitimate champion every season and you can sell drivers just like IndyCar does as top name drivers in that series, I think that will push push SRX to the next level. And I think maybe that's where they're trying to get to. But as far as SRX being an alternative to NASCAR, I definitely think it's going to give people a different avenue to enjoy auto racing at a very professional and high quality level that are just disgusted with NASCAR and very possibly, none of us can ever see the future, but I think that this could be a series that really takes off here in the next several years.
Yeah, I think obviously it's, our Gen Z, if you want to put it that way, generation of IROC, except instead of just having NASCAR, stars in it, you get, dirt track racing stars. We're now seeing, NHRA stars. We're seeing IndyCar stars. We're racing on asphalt, whether it comes to, I think last year they raced on a third of a mile track, or maybe that was 2 years ago. I mean, it's just like a little simple bowl, and Haley Deegan did really good there actually. And I think that's exactly where that local track champion won, because it's such a unique high bank 1/3 of a mile track. And, we're seeing dirt. And I think it's a true testament of who really would be the best on all 4 wheels. And now we get to see it with current NASCAR drivers jumping in. We've seen Matt Kenseth, Bobby Labonte, Bill Elliott, Michael Waltrip, things like that. But now having Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski the entire time, Haley Deegan, a younger star as in like her cards sell really, really well. But,
yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity for this to grow, because it not only, you need to have a grassroots movement when it comes to sports. I've always said that. How do you get the youth involved? Buying a $20 ticket, taking them down and say, this is the best that this sport has to offer. And that's the type of thing, Joe, that will sit down with a 12-year-old kid and go, this is really, really awesome, Dad. Where do I get to watch Kyle Busch race again? Well, son, he'll be on Sunday at Michigan International Speedway if he ends up winning at Berlin. And I think that's the type of thing that you do to move the sport forward, because this is an intimate, personal setting like you're talking about. And those are the type of things that, even though maybe Tony Stewart has a riff with NASCAR, I think he's really doing it a favor by going grassroots with it.
No, I agree with you. And I can tell you one thing, if SRX ever comes to within a travelable radius for me, here in VV, Indiana, I'm definitely going to go check out an SRX race. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think I've missed a race in the last 2 seasons. So definitely a great platform.
Yeah. And Marco Andretti won it last year, and he'll be back trying to defend his crown. And I actually will be going to Berlin Raceway the first week of August. So I look very, very forward to doing that, as I will be heading up there on a Thursday. It is sold out. Tickets on like StubHub are like $400 a piece. Joe, sorry, you did not get an invite. It is a family trip. So you'll have to, you'll have to go on StubHub and spend $400 and some to go to that one. And then I'll be making my way to Michigan International Speedway on that Sunday. So should be a great first week of myself and my family in August, and maybe even rip some lips with some smallmouth bass. So
I'm upset now.
Is what's going to wrap it up here. Well, you're always upset. You're always upset. Hashtag get rid of Ryan Peters because he's not taking me to Michigan.
Ann Arbor's a whore.
Sorry. Oh, God. Sorry to the 15 people that live there. So, moving forward, we're now going to the Monster Mile, as we alluded to earlier. And unfortunately, Joe, I think Mother Nature is going to win this matchup. It looks like a 70% chance of rain the entire weekend. I'm not sure if we ever get any type of racing in from tomorrow all the way into, if you're watching this on Friday, from Friday to Sunday. More than likely, this will be a Monday race, but we will keep you informed on what we will be doing on YouTube. Also, want to announce to you we are doing a giveaway to get to the road to 500 subscribers. If you want to pick a driver that you like, you have to like the channel, subscribe, and then let us know your favorite driver. When we hit 500 subs from the very first video I announced this, which was last week, until we get to 500 subscribers, you can win yourself a diecast. And it will look something like this.
That's yours.
Mine is a championship diecast that is also autographed by Kyle Busch. So you will not be getting that one. But you will be getting the driver of your choice. So make sure you like, subscribe, and then comment with your favorite driver. We did have a couple entries last week. But Joe, now moving on to Delaware, where I get to break down the sad news of how you did last week, as I dominated in very convincing fashion. I picked Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, who both had top fives, and he's gone. Todd Gilliland, my boy Todd Gilliland, been hitting it. Last year was rough for me picking drivers that were not very, very good. This year I've been on fire when it comes to picking my my high odd drivers. So Todd Gilliland got 10th place, and I thought maybe my most secure pick was going to be Chase Elliott. He got 12th, and then Kyle Busch ends up winning the race. That got me 10 collective points. And again, our points go: a top 5 is 2 points, a top 10 is 1 point, and a winner is 5 points. Joe picked Kyle Larson at a super speedway, so Joe is going to have 2 points until the very end, because that's when Kyle Larson, usually, like Kyle Busch, has his bad luck. Chase Elliott finished 12th. Joey Logano ends up getting wrecked in this one. Bubba Wallace did his typical Bubba Wallace thing, tried to block 3 times, and ends up ruining his chance to win the race. But the both of us had Kyle Busch, so we both end up with 5 points on that. I had 10 points altogether. Joe, you had 5. I didn't know if you heard that when you walked away. So I ended up with 56 points. Joe ended up with 44 points total. So I have a 12-point lead. And I also wanted to share, we did have somebody participate with us last week, and that is the Chainsaw Gang. Let's go ahead and look how he did. Did he do better than Joe? Of course he did. He had Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski, so that would have put him over the top. And I believe the number 20 car ended up finishing in the top 10. Let me fact check that real quick, Joe.
I heard everything.
But I will say this, Chainsaw Gang.
I was just standing
Chain Gang Saws. Chain Gang Saws. Man, that's tough.
Look, sounds like a rock band.
So Christopher Bell did get him another point as well. So Chain Gang Saws, congratulations to you. You did not beat me, but that's okay. We appreciate you, putting your input, but we will be more stringent, and you have to play by the rules by choosing a driver outside the top 20. And that does not count against Chase Elliott because he got hurt. So, of course, he's outside the top 20.
We're going to give you a pass this week.
Have some decency. Yeah, we will give you a pass, most likely in the form of gas. But, again, we are heading to Dover, Delaware. I won last week, so I'm actually going to let Joe have the honors of going first, and let's see where he goes.
Well, I was going to take Alex Bowman this week, but that's out the window.
Shout out to Josh Berry for being Johnny on the spot this year. What an amazing opportunity for him.
No, so this week I think has Kyle Larson ever won here? I think he has. Like
I
2020 or
believe so.
2019. I'm going to take Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott won here last year. Man, I'll take Kyle Busch. Let's go with Denny Hamlin as well. I know he's a past winner here. And then outside the top 20, man, oh man, oh man. Where's Bubba at?
Where is Bubba? He is outside the top 20.
I'll take Bubba this week.
Okay. Bubba. So those are Joe's picks. I have to write these down because Joe will fact check me.
Yes, I will.
Ryan's picks. So I am going to go for something I've never done before. I am going to choose every single driver for Hendrick Motorsports, including Josh Berry, who will be my pick outside the top 20. So Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Josh Berry, and Willie B. And then my last pick, I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. So I will choose the other 2311 Racing. So again, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, with Bubba being Joe's pick outside the top 20, currently in points. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Josh Berry being my pick outside the top 20, and Tyler Reddick. We will go ahead and look at the point standings one quick time before we exit off here to see where we currently stand here in the NASCAR season. So if you do want to play along, we typically have been using the playoff points settings, but either way, you can do whichever one you want as long as they're outside the top 20. It really is splitting hairs when you get to around 20th place. And Alex Bowman will be free falling because of not being able to race, and obviously he had a penalty as well. So if you want to choose anybody from here on down, Joe, there's Bubba Wallace in 21st. Feel free to do so. Outside of Chase Elliott, he does not count because he was hurt. And we know if he was racing, he would probably be inside the top 20.
Can I change my pick?
That is, you can. We have not ended the show. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I'm going to keep Bubba. Teacher always told me not to change my answer. I'm not changing my answer.
All right. Some channel news. I do want to let you know we will be having a betting show if we get some sort of answer on what we can expect when it comes to qualifying. I know we put these shows out pretty late because qualifying does happen later and later. It used to happen 2 days before the race. Now they try to do it about 12 hours before the race.
Right.
We know that's not the easiest way to get out information to you guys, but we also feel like it'd be a disservice to do the FanDuel games that we do and also give you the updated odds because that is the most information that we can go on. And if you want to win money, stay with us. Joe won at least $60-some last week. 72. I doubled up on the tournament. 72. Sorry. F. Kyle Busch. I won money. So, my lineup that I put out there won money. Last week is the only time we've ever said bet on whoever you want when it comes to super speedway racing because it is a crapshoot, and you'll know that because Kyle Busch won for the first time in 15 years at Talladega, winning after Hubba Bubba and Ryan Blaney got into it on what was the final lap. So be watching for that. The most we can do is tell you that again because Mother Nature more than likely will play havoc. If you want to enter the giveaway, we've already stated on which way to do that. But most importantly, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you've enjoyed it so far, we would love to see what you have to say when it comes to our channel. We're trying to grow and get this to more and more people so that we have a community that we are building here at Stuck in the Catchfence. And that would be the one small favor that you could do us is caressing the subscribe button. Joe, do you have anything else left to say?
No, as long as YouTube lets us get this stuff out to you, we'll continue to try to get it out to you. We're having a little problem with our YouTube channel right now. Just recently got some good folks at YouTube to admit that we are having a problem. So hopefully that gets fixed very shortly. But I will say on the gambling aspect, if you catch this video, you really do want to tune in for that. I would say that Ryan and I are both above average gamblers. The NBA playoffs, which I know this is a NASCAR show, have been very kind to me the last couple of days, as Ryan could attest to.
Yes, they have.
So we both like to, sports are a passion. We like to dive in and really look at the analytics of why things are going to happen the way that they're going to happen. And normally, if you listen to us, we're not right all the time, just most of the time. And most of the time when you're gambling's good enough.
Yes, we have had, I would say, out of the lineups we've put out, Joe, on our channel, we have produced money 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard to find anything in the gambling world that produces money 80% of the time. And we also don't just give you a lineup. We give you the tools of what you need to do to make your own lineup with the logic that we use and things of that nature as well.
And not to do any self-promotion, but I'll tell you at the beginning, I've always been a DraftKings guy. I've always kind of given odds anytime that we would do a betting show here on this channel or other networks that we do betting shows on, whether it be radio. Always gave the odds for DraftKings. I was a DraftKings guy, and I'll tell you, I put $20 in my FanDuel account at the beginning of the NASCAR season just to do this fantasy stuff with Ryan. Of course, I won't say that I'm a compulsive gambler because I don't put a lot of money down on any event. But currently, right now, $20. What are we, 10 races into the NASCAR season? Of course, I've bet on other sports through the sports book as well. But I'm currently sitting at $630 in my FanDuel account. So, we could give pretty good advice if you want to listen to it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to higher my interest rates, Joe, next time you borrow money from me. So
I know.
I appreciate you letting me know that.
Yeah. Where's my money?
Thank you. I'll be working like the Federal Reserve here very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm going to have to cash out sooner. I'm going to have to pay tax on that.
That's actually true. Last thing you need, Joe, is a 1099 from the IRS and their armed agents. So that is going to be the end of the show. Thanks for joining us. We will again be reaching out to you on our page through posts being determined by the weather. So our advice to you before you leave today, please don't be Corey LaJoie. Don't be a pain in the dick. That's it. Just don't be a pain in the dick. That's it. This is Stuck in the Catchfence.